All right, this is Mr. Lassard's Mindset Slideshow Part 2. We're going to be focusing on the growth mindset this time. If you guys are just tuning into this, this is the second part to what we did in class today. So remember that in class we talked about fixed mindsets, and you practiced taking notes on fixed mindsets using the Cornell notes format. This is the second part of that. So your homework tonight is to watch this slideshow and take a second set of Cornell notes on the growth mindset this time. So just a quick reminder, friendly reminder, that these are required notes. I will be checking these notes tomorrow when you come into class, and they should stay in your notebook because you never know when they're going to come up again. If you don't yet have your 3-subject English notebook because those aren't quite due yet, then go ahead and just put them on a separate sheet, and then you can include them, staple them into your notebook once you get it. We've got a few lesson objectives. You can see that this slideshow looks really similar to the one that you saw in class today. In class today, we focused on the kind of the dark side of the yin-yang symbol. This time we'll be focusing on the light side of the yin-yang symbol, with the one with the Jedi symbol in it. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to do 3 things. So you should be able to define a growth mindset. You should be able to tell somebody what a growth mindset is, hopefully in your own words. Second, you should be able to understand how growth mindsets can affect your learning. So you should be able to apply what you know about growth mindsets to what you know about the way that you learn, or the way that you would like to learn. And then finally, you should be able to identify traits of a growth mindset in yourself, if applicable, and that's kind of similar to what I just said. But at the same time, you should be looking forward and thinking, are there things that might apply to me later as well? So we've got about 1 slide of notes here. I'm going to move on. I did my animation thing, and you can see I've got Yoda down there because we can associate this kind of growth mindset as like the positive side, the light side of mindsets. And you can see we've got, under the title growth mindset, it says we can master our intelligence. And the idea behind a growth mindset is that we are not stuck in one place. We are neither stupid, we're not smart, we are capable of changing how intelligent we are. We might not be very smart at math, but we can get better at it. We might not be very good at writing, but we can get better at it. So we have mastery over that. And there are some characteristics of a growth mindset that you should be aware of. So the first one is that the person who has a growth mindset has the idea, or lives by the idea, that they can meet challenges. So we meet challenges by acknowledging that they're hard. We can see that challenges equal hard. The excuse that a lot of people say when something is there, it's too hard, I'm not going to do it. Well, the person with the growth mindset looks at it a little bit differently and says, it is hard, but then they move forward with it. And what that means is success manifests differently. They understand that success doesn't always mean that they're going to be perfect at something. It doesn't always mean that they're even going to do something correctly, but even in the act of trying, the act of acknowledging a challenge, that they are in some ways successful. So that's the first characteristic. The second characteristic is that people with a growth mindset persist against obstacles. So rather than saying, well, that's too hard, I'm not going to do it, they say, well, yeah, okay, I understand that that's hard now. What's my next step? They also understand that obstacles pop up unexpectedly. They're not discouraged when they see, they kind of have planned out their end goal, and then all of a sudden they decide, they come up against an unexpected obstacle, and it it stands in the way of what their end goal is. They just decide how they're going to get around that obstacle. And they also understand that when these obstacles stand in their way, even when those obstacles cause them to fail, it's actually a win, because in meeting the obstacle, they have come up against something that was unexpected, and they have learned something from it. Even if they didn't get to where they expected to be, they're still farther ahead than where they were. The third characteristic is that they understand that the mastery of whatever they're working toward results from continued effort. So they don't expect that they're going to take a few notes on something and all of a sudden they're going to be able to do it. They don't expect that they're going to walk in class and have the teacher tell them how to do something and then all of a sudden they'll just be perfect at it. They understand that it's kind of this continuous kind of, train of effort where you make one step and then you make another step and, or since I was talking about a train, it's like one chug and then another chug, right? Uh, it's constantly working towards something. So they're asking themselves things like, what did I learn from this attempt that I can improve on next time? Maybe they tried and failed, but in failing, they identify what caused them to fail and they learn from that. They grow from that, which is something that I've mentioned earlier. They also understand that the more effort they put in, this time, next time they try it, it's going to be easier. So when I do fail or when it is hard for me to write that paper, then next time when I write the next paper, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to be slightly better. I know where I failed this time, and this time next time I'm going to avoid that problem. The fourth characteristic is that they look for the good in constructive criticism. So whereas people with a fixed mindset will look at constructive criticism as kind of reflecting poorly on them, people with a growth mindset will look at constructive criticism and say, well, I understand that this person is not trying to be mean to me, is not trying to tear me down. This person is telling me what I did wrong or what I can improve on so that I can go ahead and do better on it next time. So they're constantly looking, they're not taking it personally so much as they're saying, okay, well, I understand that this is for my own benefit. So they see criticism as an opportunity to make adjustments to the things that they're doing, or sometimes the things that they're failing at. We have to, again, person with a growth mindset accepts failure as an opportunity for growth. So sometimes criticism is going to point out a failure, but that criticism should also give them the opportunity to make adjustments to what they're doing. And they understand that it's not about me as a person, right? Like when the teacher or when whoever it is, when the coach is making some kind of comment about what I've done, where I've gone wrong with my math problem or where I made a mistake with my grammar or why I failed to complete the pass when I was passing the football. It's not about me as a person, it's not calling me a bad person. It's more about saying, all right, here's where we had a difficulty and let's go ahead and make the adjustment that we need so that you can do it better next time. And it's not a personal thing. Lastly, I think they look at the success of others as inspiration. So they don't see someone else doing something better than them and say, oh, wow, well, I'll never be as good as that. They see somebody else doing something better than them and they say, I wish I could do what they're doing. And they learn from what that person is doing. They emulate or they try to emulate what that person is doing. So they take lessons from their accomplishments. Like I was saying, you look at what somebody's doing and you figure out, well, how can I take what they're doing and incorporate it into what I'm doing? Whether that's writing, or speaking, or doing math, or passing a football, or being a Jedi, you look for how we can learn from somebody else's accomplishments. And they also understand, and you'll see connections to this in what we've been doing in class over the past couple of days, that cooperation is way more important than competition. I know that we have competition between our classes, but you'll notice that I'm saying things in class where, I talk about, it's much more important that you guys encourage each other and help each other gain points, help each other remember to study, help each other remember to show up on time, help each other to, whatever it is, rather than beat each other down, because a huge part of having that growth mindset is knowing that other people are there for you to help you. It's not to say that there's no place for healthy competition, but cooperation, teamwork is really important. And what all of this ends up creating in us is the opposite of what the fixed mindset creates. The fixed mindset creates those kind of negative feedback loops where we think a negative thought and then that leads to another negative thought, and before we know it, we are kind of spiraling downwards. With a growth mindset, if you can hold yourself to these kind of idealistics or ideals or these characteristics, you end up with a positive feedback loop. So you start telling yourself, well, I can do it, and it's okay if I fail at this. It's okay that I didn't get an A on this quiz this time because next time I know there will be a next time and I know I'll be better at it. It's okay that I got a C on this paragraph that I wrote because I know that I can redo it and I can get better at it. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking for in a positive feedback loop. So probably the last point that I want to is, because this is all very idealistic, whereas the negative feedback loop is or the fixed mindset is very kind of down in the dumps. This is all very idealistic, and it's not easy. It's really, we're all human, and we struggle with that. So this idea of the yin and the yang, the Sith and the Jedi, the light and the dark, is really important, because what we have to realize is that most people are neither 100% fixed mindset nor are we 100% growth mindset. We sometimes find ourselves in those negative feedback loops, and we have to force ourselves to try to get out of them and into the positive feedback loops. And it's not to say that sometimes a fixed mindset might be useful for certain things. Other times, growth mindset might not be the best idea for whatever it is that we're trying to do. And that's kind of getting at what we're going to talk about in a couple of days. So again, these notes will be important for you to remember and to think about and to apply. Well, where do I see these things emerging in my own life, in my own classes, in if I watch the news, in movies, where do I see these things coming out, and how can I maybe change them so that they're more positive for me, or they help me, or they help other people. But probably the biggest thing is remembering that adjustment is possible. If you notice that you tend to get stuck in one or the other and it's not useful for you at the time, it is possible to adjust. So with that, we're going to call it good for tonight. And hopefully you've learned something and come to class with your notes ready to show me tomorrow. We'll do something hopefully that's a little bit, hopefully it'll be a little bit fun tomorrow with these notes. Have a good evening.